Hello friends, so I'll be talking on this PA catheter. So in exams we do ask about certain basic principles of PA catheter. Although clearly understanding that this has almost become obsolete and not many places are doing this. Nevertheless, it is important to understand the core aspects of this PA catheter because this was the science which was practiced for at least more than 2 to 3 decades, and we were using it quite often when I was in Australia way back in 2000, 2003 to 2008. So, where do we use this PA catheter? So, basically, PA catheter is an advanced hemodynamic tool which are used in very complex sort of a condition where we need to understand the fluid dynamics and the fluid status in the body. So, the typical conditions where you have a refractory septic shock or burns where there are huge fluid shifts and we need to have some good assessment of ascertaining the fluid status and the cardiac function. So these are the situations where we were intending to use this. And typically we were using it when there was a mixed shocks where there was a septic shock along with a cardiac component, or in ARDS, COPD, or severe pancreatitis, or acute kidney injury, or obstetric emergencies like abruptio placenta, or complex cardiac surgery. So these were some of the key indications where PA catheter was considered as a standard of care. Even now, in many centers, I'm sure where cardiac surgeries are performed, PA catheters are being used to assess the hemodynamic function and hemodynamic status. So, PA catheter is mainly considered when one has to assess the volume status, one has to assess the preload, has to assess the cardiac index and the cardiac function, and the mixed venous oxygenation level. So, these are some of the key parameters if is something that would influence your management. So, it was being used. So we need to understand there are certain contraindications of PA catheter. Anything to do with uh, valvular abnormality, mainly the tricuspid valve abnormality, Epstein's anomaly, LBBB, or Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. So these were some of the contraindications for PA catheter. So this PA catheter is kept in the exams in maybe instrument section, and we may ask candidates to identify different components of the PA catheter. So it is usually 110 centimeters long, made of PVC, and as you see, it has five sort of a ports. So and candidate is expected to know what are these five ports. You see the red one, so this is a heated. So this is the thermistor. So where uh, there is a heat sensitive sort of an electrode there, so that's a thermistor. And this is the distal port, which basically sits in the pulmonary artery and measures the pulmonary artery pressure, and that is where the blood is drawn to assess the mixed venous oxygenation or mixed venous oxygen in the blood. And this is the proximal port, which is sits at 30 centimeters. It sits in the right atrial right atria. So basically, where it measures the right atrial pressure and helps in estimating the cardiac output. And this is the ventricular port, as the name suggests that it sits in the ventricle. And this is the balloon inflation. So as you see, there will be a small balloon at the tip of the catheter. So if you see this yellow, we used to call this snake in our in our lingo when we were inserting these. So it has a small balloon at the tip. So this is where you put the syringe and inflate 1.5 ml of air, and this balloon gets inflated, and that is where it goes and wedges into the pulmonary artery. So that the pressure it records is a reflection of the left atrium. So that is how you need to understand. I'll show some of the diagrams. So these are the different sort of a ports of a PA catheter. Thermistor, distal port. As the name sounds, it is distal. So it is sitting at the farther end, which is pulmonary artery pressure. Proximal part, as the name suggests, is sitting in the more sort of a proximal part, which is the right atrium, and the in between is the ventricular port. So it's very easy to remember. Distal port sits in the pulmonary artery, proximal sits in the RA, and the ventricular port sits in between. Okay, PA and the RA. And so if you see how this PA catheter is put in, so it enters into the right atrium. So around 15 centimeters it is at the right atrium. Then it goes into the right ventricle. So that is where you have increase in the systolic pressure, And you can have ectopics, because whenever you pass a guide wire while you are putting a CVC, you would see there will be some ectopics. So you would see some ectopics. Then it enters the pulmonary artery at around 35 to 45 centimeter. It is sitting at the pulmonary artery where it reaches the pulmonary artery pressure. So this is the waveform you get in the pulmonary artery. So when it is sitting in the ventricle, you get this waveform. So when it is sitting in the right atrium, you get the right atrial trace. And then here you see the balloon inflated. So that is where it gets inflated, and then you'll get this wedge pressure. Okay, so that I will show you. So this is the wedge pressure. So this is the pulmonary artery pressure. This is the wedge pressure. Okay. So these are the different waveforms that candidate is expected to recognize and identify when we show an exam. I'll show you the next graph, which will show you how exactly. So these are the graphs we may show in the exam and ask you to recognize different components. So this is the right atrium trace where the pressure is around 0 to 8 centimeter water. So this is the right ventricle, which is a sharp trace where the pressure is around 15 to 30 systolic and diastolic is 0. And this is the pulmonary artery trace, which is 15 to 30. And then once you wedge, you put 1.5 ml air, it wedges, and that will indicate a pressure of around whatever 5 to 15, which is a reflection of left atrial pressure, which indicates left ventricular end diastolic volume and the concomitant pressure. So this is the typical waveform that possibly, if you are asked, you should be able to recognize. And these are the different pressures in different areas of the heart. So RV systolic pressure is around 17 to 30 normally. Diastolic is 0 to 6. And the RV oxygen content is 15%. The RV oxygen saturation is 75%. So this is in the RV, where the PA is sitting in the RV. And in the pulmonary artery, the normal pulmonary artery systolic pressure is 15 to 30. Diastolic is 5 to 13. Oxygen content is very similar to right ventricle, 15%, and 75% is the oxygen saturation. So in the wedge pressure, generally the pressure is 2 to 12. So pulmonary venous oxygen content is 20%, and venous oxygen saturation will be more, 98%, because that is pure blood which has gone into the left atrium. Okay. So that is around 98%. So what are the advantages of putting in a pulmonary catheter? We saw it is an estimate of preload. It can help estimate the mixed venous oxygen. It helps in trying to ascertain the cardiac index and cardiac output. Along with this, it may even with you have a probes where you could do we used to call Swan pacing or PA pacing and intracardiac ECG, and our ability to ascertain cardiac output and cardiac index, and that may help in establishing diagnosis of myocardial ischemia. So these are some of the advantages of using PA catheter. And your whole PA catheter is based on your estimation of the left ventricular end diastolic pressure. And here again we are equating pressure to the volume. So left ventricular end diastolic pressure is a reflection of a left ventricular end diastolic volume, which is a reflection of left atrial pressure. So that is what you are measuring in the PA catheter, and that is related to having an influence on the stroke volume of the heart. Okay, so that is the assumption that we make. So, so this is another schematic diagram as to how it will assess your left ventricular end diastolic pressure or left atrial pressure. So the way we try to ascertain that is, see, you have put in the PA catheter and then you inflate the balloon. So once you are inflating the balloon, so the pressure which gets transduced from here is cut off from the pressure here. So what basically this indicates is the pressure here. So this is the pulmonary veins which is going into the left atrium. So because your tip is sitting here and it is transducing, which is transduced, so it reflects the pressure of the left atrium. So that is what we call it as pulmonary artery occlusive pressure, which is an indicator of left atrial pressure, and this is related to left ventricular end diastolic pressure, which is dependent on left ventricular end diastolic volume. So it gives you a volume assessment of the LV. That is what is the principle of the PA occlusive pressure. So this is another sort of a image, and the key aspect about accuracy of left atrial occlusive pressure is the PA catheter and the balloon that is wedged should be in a zone 3. Zone 3 is a place where your pulmonary venous pressure is more than alveolar pressure. because see, there is no influence of, this is an alveoli, this is a pulmonary artery. So this alveolar pressure is not impinging to influence its pressure on the pulmonary artery. So whatever pressure you are recording is independent of the alveoli, so that it is a good reflection of the left atrial pressure. Suppose you measure your PA pressure here, as you see pulmonary artery pressure, because your alveoli is compressing. This is a so this is a area which is possibly zone 1. So where your pulmonary artery pressure is more than pulmonary venous pressure, the reason is because alveoli is interfering. It is compressing your pulmonary artery. So the pressure that gets reflected is alveolar pressure rather than the left atrial pressure, which should be the case. See, here it is reflecting the left atrial pressure because it is in continuation with the pulmonary artery, and which is reflection of the pulmonary vein which leads to the left atrium. Okay, so that is our understanding. That's why we emphasize that the accuracy of the pulmonary artery wedge pressure is when the wedging happens in the zone 3, because in zone 1 and zone 2 there is an alveoli which is interfering with the pressure. I'll show you the next diagram, which is, see, this is a very clear diagram. So as you see, this is zone 1 where pulmonary artery pressure is less than pulmonary alveolar. So this is zone 1. So your alveoli is compressing, less than alveolar pressure, and which is more than pulmonary venous pressure. So zone 2, pulmonary artery pressure is more than pulmonary alveolar pressure, which is more than pulmonary venous pressure, because of what we saw in the previous figure. So this is a zone 2 where pulmonary artery is more than pulmonary venous and which is more than pulmonary alveolar. The ideal position should be zone 3. As you see, zone 3 is not compressing your pulmonary artery. So your pulmonary artery pressure. So here if you wedge, it is a true reflection of the pressure which is communicating with the left atrium, which is pulmonary artery pressure is more than alveolar pressure, and alveolar pressure is less than pulmonary venous pressure. So this is something which we may ask in the exam, which is the ideal zone and what are the pressure relation in the zone 3. So zone 3 is pulmonary artery pressure is more than alveolar pressure and alveolar pressure is less than venous pressure. So this candidate should be able to understand conceptually. So again same thing. See, this is zone 1, pulmonary artery less than pulmonary artery venous and more than pulmonary venous, and this is zone 2 which is more than what we discussed. So typical, I'm showing different diagrams. So your whole wedging should happen in zone 3 where pulmonary artery pressure, which I mentioned, is more than alveolar pressure and less than venous pressure. Okay. So how do we confirm that a PA catheter is in zone 3? So we confirm because by following certain pressure recordings. So here your pulmonary artery wedge pressure should not be more than pulmonary artery pressure. So that is one criteria. And pulmonary artery occlusive pressure should be less than pulmonary artery diastolic pressure, which is 5 to 13 millimeter. And alteration of PEEP should alter pulmonary artery occlusive pressure to less than 50%. And changes in arterial pressure should increase pulmonary artery occlusive pressure to less than 50%, and there should not be arterialization of the blood. So these are some of the ways that we ascertain. The simplest thing is to remember that your wedge pressure cannot be more than your pulmonary artery pressure, or pulmonary artery occlusive pressure should be less than pulmonary artery diastolic. I think if these two you can remember, I think that should be good enough to determine that it is sitting in the zone 3. So what is the relationship of, obviously we saw that pulmonary artery is sitting in the, when you are wedging, so it is in a very close proximity to the alveoli. So obviously your administration or application of PEEP will have a bearing on pulmonary artery wedge pressure. So what is the bearing? So as you see, PEEP raises end expiratory vascular pressure, and pulmonary artery occlusive pressure nadir is acceptable if no hyperinflation. So the key aspect of pulmonary artery occlusive pressure is it can be influenced by the PEEP. If you give a very high PEEP and the alveoli is very distended, then it can have a bearing on the measurement of occlusive pressure because it may not be in continuum with the pulmonary vein, and it may not reflect your left atrial pressure. So here, as you see, your pulmonary artery occlusive pressure here. So this is the respiratory waveform. This is the wedge form. So it is 5 millimeters. So we do something called index of transmission, which is change in the pulmonary artery occlusive pressure. In this case, which is 5, you divided by change in the airway pressure. So here the change in airway pressure, as you see, is around 10. So and then you divide with that and you get index of transmission as 0.5. So why is this important? Because then you do something called corrected pulmonary artery occlusive pressure, which is equal to end expiratory pulmonary artery occlusive pressure minus PEEP into index into transmission. So these are all the formulas you can remember if you can, but as I said, these are all situations which you would apply in a severe ARDS patient, or in a setting where high PEEPs are used, or in a setting where you are ventilating complex COPD patient. Even there you may have a higher auto PEEP, and that may influence your PA pressure. So how do we correct for that PEEP factor that we are putting in? You have to do this index of transmission and then use these formulas to ascertain the corrected pulmonary artery occlusive pressure. So there are certain situations where pulmonary artery, as I said, pulmonary artery occlusive pressure can be more than left ventricular end diastolic pressure. So this you would see mainly in the valvular lesions affecting the left side, which is your mitral stenosis or pulmonary venous obstruction. So your occlusive pressure is reflected more. Obviously, it will be reflected more when there is no free blood flow from the LA to the LV, which happens in mitral stenosis, or you have pulmonary venous obstruction, because then your pulmonary artery occlusive pressure is being shown very high, or Epstein's anomaly, or left atrial pathologies, left atrial myxoma or increased valvular pressure. So there are situations where pulmonary artery occlusive pressure can be less than left ventricular end diastole. That is again in a regurgitant lesion where aortic regurgitation or reduced LV compliance. And there is something called pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure, which can be measured by something called GAR equation, which is calculated by this formula: pulmonary artery occlusive pressure plus 0.4 into mean arterial pressure minus occlusive pressure. And this ratio, pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, pulmonary capillary pressure is to occlusive pressure, tends to go up in all these inflammatory conditions like histamine release, inflammatory mediators, pulmonary edema, or pulmonary veno-occlusive disease. So these are all things that you can keep in mind. So we wouldn't expect you to remember all this to the T, because we seldom use these equations in our regular practice. But it is good to know about how this pulmonary capillary pressure is derived at by knowing this formula, because this pulmonary, for ascertaining pulmonary capillary pressure, you need to know pulmonary artery occlusive pressure. And obviously by using PA catheter, we calculate cardiac output, and this I have done it in the previous cardiac output talk. You can refer to the talk where I have dwelt into details about how we derive at various variables with PA catheter. We use something called Stewart-Hamilton equation to derive cardiac output. So cardiac output is simply the volume of injected into change in temperature as a function of time. So V is the volume of injected, T is the temperature of blood. So TB minus TI is the injected, TI is the injected temperature, TB is the body temperature. So the change in the temperature that happens when the blood flows from the right atrium to the pulmonary artery is what is captured as a function of time, and then your cardiac output is derived. So once you get a cardiac output, then you can calculate cardiac index, which is cardiac output divided by BSA, body surface area. And once you have this, you can calculate, once you have cardiac index, you can calculate stroke volume index, which is cardiac index divided by heart rate. Once you have cardiac index, you can calculate SVRI, which is systemic vascular resistance index, which is by this formula 79.92 into MAP minus RAP divided by cardiac. So I'm sure many of the trainees who would be listening to this would have gone through all these formulas to answer your MCQ questions in intensive care. So this you can refer to. Pulmonary vascular resistance index is 79.92 into PAP, pulmonary artery pressure minus wedge tube. So what I'm only trying to say is, once you get cardiac index, so you can derive a lot of other variables. Once you get cardiac output, You get cardiac index. Once you get cardiac index, you can start deriving all these other variables which are dependent on cardiac index, like SVRI, PVRI, and left ventricular stroke work index is stroke volume index into MAP into zero point 0, and RV stroke volume index, stroke work index is SVI into PA pressure into 0.014. So you can look into these formulas and see if you can. I think at least we would expect you to remember SVRI and PVRI, because these are things that are commonly sort of used when you are doing thermodilution and getting cardiac output or cardiac index in PA catheter. Okay. So what are the complications of PA catheter? There are around 6 complications. So when you are putting PA, there is a risk of rupturing pulmonary artery itself, and the mortality when there is a pulmonary artery rupture or damage is up to 50 to 70%. So you have to be careful in not causing rupture. And it can cause compromise in the blood flow leading to pulmonary infarction, and it can cause endocarditis because you are putting the catheter which goes into the RV. So there can be risk of dysrhythmias, and if you have, as I said, LBBB is a contraindication. So there can be conduction abnormalities because your flow of currents or flow conduction pathways lie in that area, and catheter knotting can happen, and sometimes over wedging can also happen. So these are some of the complications, and generally it is accepted that PA catheters, once you put, should not be kept for more than 72 hours because of the risk of infection and maybe even the risk of infarction, pulmonary infarction and pulmonary artery rupture. So now, having spoken about the science of PA catheter and what are all the variables that we can get out of PA catheter and our ability to interpret the PA catheter, what is the evidence? Unfortunately, the reason or the remark I made at the outset that this has become obsolete is because of the trials. So these are some of the trials that have shown that PA catheter usage has not led to improved outcomes. So this was an initial trial, a randomized controlled trial of the use of PA catheter in high-risk surgical patients. This came Sandman trial, came in NEJM. As you see, they had 1,994 patients, and they looked at mortality at 6 and 12 months between PA catheter group and placebo. There was no difference. And what they found is the risk of pulmonary thromboembolism was high in the PA catheter. This was one study. And the ESCAPE trial, which came in JAMA, showed hospital and 6-month mortality, no benefit. And then there was a PAC trial that came. So these are all the practice-changing trials that came in, 2 trials in NEJM and JAMA, which did not show huge benefit with the use of PA catheter in influencing favorable clinical outcomes. So that's about it. So thank you very much, friends. So you can revisit this lecture by visiting my website www.pradeeprangappa.com and rehear to gain clarity and insights. And so you can just go through this before exams. At least the traces is what would be important, and conceptually understand as to the zone 3 wedging, as to why it is important. Because zone 3 wedging is something conceptually you should understand the relationship between the alveolar pressure and the pulmonary artery, and what are all the derived variables of the pulmonary artery that we can get, and some of the complications. So that's all we would ask in the exams. And so I think with that pretty much you should be able to answer most of the questions. The index of transmission and corrected PAOP is a little advanced one, so if you can remember, well and good. So thank you, one and all.